This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The intention is to shed light on true crime cases and their impact on society. Viewer discretion is advised. The man you're looking at on your screen claimed to have killed over 300 people, mostly women and young girls. And most shocking of all, he got released from prison after only 14 years for supposed good behavior. Welcome back to our channel, where we delve into the darkest and most intriguing stories from around the world. In today's video, we will uncover the chilling tale of Pedro Alonso Lopez, also known as the Monster of the Andes, as he is one of history's most notorious serial killers. From his heinous crimes to his eventual capture, we'll explore the shocking details of this true crime case that gripped the world. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our upcoming videos. Pedro Alonso Lopez, commonly known as the Monster of the Andes, was born on October 8, 1948, in the municipality of Venadillo in the town of Tolima, Colombia. He later moved to Santa Isabel, where he grew up. Pedro Lopez was the seventh of 13 children, born to Benilda Lopez de Castañeda, who worked as a prostitute. He had a difficult childhood due to the violence at the household and the absence of a father figure. The reason being is because his father, Megdaro Reyes, who had 2 wives, was murdered in La Violencia 6 months before his birth. From an early age, Lopez faced a troubling upbringing. He was abandoned by his mother and suffered severe abuse at the hands of his stepmother, which greatly affected his psychological development. The kid was very troubled. One time, his mother caught him attempting to molest his sister, and as a result, she banished him from the house. At age 12, he was adopted by an American immigrant family, but fled after he was sexually assaulted by a teacher. So, bottom line is Pedro had a very rough and unusual childhood. Perhaps this could explain the insanity of his actions and the motive for his rage. When he hit adulthood, Lopez began a life of crime, committing various offenses that eventually led him down a path of unimaginable horror. For example, when he was only 21 years old, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for auto theft. During this period of incarceration, he was brutally abused by a gang of 4 other inmates. Days later, Lopez hunted down the inmates and killed them in retaliation. The killings were ruled as only self-defense, and 2 years were added to his sentence. Upon his release from prison in 1978, Lopez began drifting throughout the northwestern area of South America, eventually arriving in Peru. His crimes mainly targeted young girls, as he believed they were easier to manipulate and control. He claimed that during this period, he had killed over 100 girls, mainly street children from indigenous tribes. His killing streak spanned several countries in South America, including Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. He would often lure his victims with promises of gifts or money, before leading them to remote locations where he would carry out his heinous acts. These are the images of some of the victims he killed. Throughout his murderous rampage, Lopez claimed to have taken the lives of over 300 young girls, though the exact number remains uncertain. However, it is confirmed that he took the lives of at least 100 innocent women. The sheer scale of his crimes, combined with the gruesome nature of his killings, earned him the infamous title of the Monster of the Andes. As you may know, the Andes is among the world's longest mountain ranges in South America. the place where our villain has done the unthinkable. These acts are absolutely unjustifiable, but it's fair to dive deep inside a criminal's brain to learn their motives. Lopez's motivations for his horrific acts of murder have been the subject of speculation and analysis. Many experts agree that he had a troubled childhood. The absence of a father and mother, the abuse he got from his stepmother, being kicked out of the house at a young age, and being abused by his teacher were definitely some of the causes for his madness. And like we said earlier, he mainly targeted young girls because they were easier to manipulate and lure. Lopez reportedly said, "I lost my innocence at a young age, so I decided to do the same to as many girls as I could." Some believe it's also driven from a deep, twisted sexual fantasy he has. He once said, "There is a wonderful moment, a divine moment when I have my hands around a young girl's throat." The authorities were initially unaware of the magnitude of Lopez's crimes, as his victims' bodies were often hidden in remote areas. However, the communities affected by his actions began to notice the alarming number of missing girls and the growing sense of fear that gripped the region. Eventually, Lopez's reign of terror came to an end in 1980. He was captured in Ecuador after an attempted abduction of a 12-year-old girl on her way to the market went awry, leading to his arrest. The local merchants held him until the police came to the scene and arrested him. Shockingly, when apprehended, he confessed to his horrendous crimes and even led authorities to the burial sites of many of his victims. The magnitude of Lopez's crime shocked law enforcement and the public alike. As the investigation unfolded, details emerged of his methods and the extent of his brutality. His signature move was choking his victims to death. Once alone with them, he would employ various methods to murder them. Lopez would strangle his victims, sometimes using his bare hands or with a ligature, cutting off their air supply until they perished. In other instances, he would use more brutal means, such as breaking their necks or suffocating them. He would often do this after subjecting them to rape or torture. Some reports even suggested that he engaged in cannibalism. Lopez's capture shed light on the alarming prevalence of serial killers in the region and exposed the flaws in law enforcement and societal systems that allowed him to evade capture for so long. After all, the monster of the Andes preyed upon young girls from impoverished and marginalized communities, who often went unnoticed or were dismissed by society. This sad selection made it less likely for the crimes to be reported or investigated thoroughly, giving Lopez a greater degree of anonymity. Added to that, many of the countries where Lopez operated had limited resources, both in terms of manpower and forensic capabilities. This hindered the investigation process and made it harder to gather evidence and identify the killer. Questions arose about the controversial lack of resources, coordination, and communication among different law enforcement agencies, which hindered the investigation and allowed Lopez to continue his killing spree for years. After his arrest, Lopez was convicted in Ecuador for the murders he committed in that country. He served his prison sentence at the Garcia Moreno prison near the capital city of Quito. He confessed to many of his evil crimes and was sentenced to only 16 years in prison after being charged for killing 116 victims, even though he's believed to have killed more than 300. It's hard to believe, but this was the legal maximum at the time in Ecuador. That's not all, though. Due to a combination of factors, including overcrowding and a controversial psychiatric evaluation, and the exploitation of a legal loophole, his sentence was reduced. In 1994, he was released from prison for good behavior after serving only 14 years. Before getting out of prison, he reportedly said, Someday, when I'm released, I will feel that moment again. I will be happy to kill again. It is my mission. In an interview shortly before his release, Lopez described himself as the man of the century and said he was being released for good behavior. To this day, Pedro Alonso Lopez's whereabouts remain largely unknown. Some reports suggest he may still be alive, possibly residing in Colombia or Brazil, while others claim he may have been killed by a vengeful relative of one of his victims. The uncertainty surrounding his fate adds an additional layer of intrigue to this already disturbing case. The story of Pedro Alonso Lopez serves as a haunting reminder for the capacity for evil that exists in our world. It raises important questions about the factors that contribute to the development of serial killers and the need for improved law enforcement efforts to protect society from such individuals. Thank you for joining us today as we delved into the horrifying story of Pedro Alonso Lopez, the monster of the Andes. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let us know in the comments which other true crime stories you would like us to cover in the future. Remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Until next time, stay safe and be aware of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places.